It was raining. The kind of rain that feels personal, like the sky knew what I was about to see. I walked in quietly. I didn't knock. I didn't scream. I just stood there watching two silhouettes move in the light that used to belong to me. At first, I thought it was a dream. Then I saw the robe, my robe, the silk one with tiny flowers embroidered on the sleeves, the one I'd hung on the bathroom door that very morning. And her voice, soft, familiar, motherly, my mother's voice. She said his name the same way I used to, like a prayer whispered against skin. Like a secret meant only for lovers. The sound didn't just break my heart. It humiliated it. I remember the smell. Vanilla perfume, candle, wax, wine, 2 glasses on the nightstand, half empty, lipstick stains on both rims. One bed, our bed. No explanation. She didn't look surprised when she saw me standing in the doorway. Neither did he. That was the worst part. They looked ready. Like they'd rehearsed this moment in their minds 1,000 times before I arrived. Like my arrival was just another scene in a play they'd been performing without me. I didn't say a word. I just turned away, my feet moving on instinct. The engagement ring on my hand felt heavier than the rain outside. I walked out of that house into the storm, and something inside me went silent forever. Some betrayals don't make noise. They just rearrange the way your soul breathes. And mine stopped breathing that night. My name is Alara Marcel. I'm 32 years old, an architect by profession, a fool by circumstance, a daughter by blood but no longer by choice. A woman who once believed that love was something you could build and live inside, something with blueprints and foundations and rooms filled with laughter. I was wrong. My mother, Vera, raised me to be perfect, polished, polite, and predictable. She said perfection protects you from the cruelty of the world, but perfection doesn't protect you. It only hides how easy you are to break, how fragile your trust really is. People always said she was beautiful. So beautiful she forgot how to be kind. So stunning that people forgave her sharpness, her coldness, her casual cruelty disguised as honesty. And I loved her so much that I didn't see her always competing, even with me. Especially with me. Every achievement I had was met with a comment about how she'd done it better at my age. Every relationship I formed was compared to hers. Every dress I wore was critiqued against her taste. Now I know she didn't just take my fiancé. She took the version of me that still believed she could never hurt me. She gave me life, but never the space to live it. I deleted my wedding playlist that night. Then the photos, but not the videos. No, I kept those. Evidence. Proof of what love can do when it's dressed like family. 3 days later, I visited her. I told myself I just wanted answers, closure, some explanation that would make the impossible possible. But what I really wanted was to see if she'd flinch when she saw me. She didn't. She smiled. That same soft, practiced smile she'd perfected over decades. The kind that never reaches the eyes but convinces everyone watching that it does. The house smelled like her favorite perfume, Velvet Storm. The same one that lingered in his sheets, in my memories, in the air between us now like a ghost I couldn't escape. She poured tea like nothing happened, like we were just 2 women catching up over afternoon refreshments. Her hands shook a little when she set down the cup. I noticed everything now. The way her eyes darted to the door as if planning an escape route. The way her smile tightened at the corners when I stayed silent. The way she gripped the armrest like it might save her from drowning. I didn't mention the robe, or the ring, or the wine glasses. I just watched her, studying every micro-expression, every nervous gesture. And for the first time in my life, she looked small to me. Guilt doesn't always speak. Sometimes it just trembles. Before I left, I said one thing, casual as commenting on the weather. I found your shawl, the blue one you left at Callan's. She froze, just for a second. And that was enough. That's when I knew she wasn't sorry. She was afraid. I walked away smiling. I kept the ring on for 3 weeks. Not because of love, but because pain needs proof sometimes. It sat on my finger like a secret, shining for people who didn't deserve to see me break into 1,000 pieces. Every morning, I'd stare at it while drinking coffee that tasted like ash. That perfect circle, mocking me with its promise of forever. I couldn't take it off, not yet, because I needed to remember how betrayal feels when it still wears diamonds and catches the light. When I finally slipped it off, my skin was pale beneath it. Untouched, unburned, innocent. A thin white line marking where promises used to live. It's strange how a single line on your finger can mark the border between who you were and who you'll never be again. Between the woman who believed in fairy tales and the one who knows they're just pretty lies. Metal remembers heat. My heart does too. But both can be melted down and forged into something stronger, something harder to break. I placed the ring in a small velvet box and locked it in the bottom drawer. Not as a keepsake, as evidence, because I was learning something important, that the best revenge isn't emotional, it's documented, it's patient, it's planned with the precision of an architectural blueprint, and I was just beginning to plan. People asked where Callan was. Friends, colleagues, distant relatives who suddenly cared about my personal life. I told them we postponed the wedding. They nodded, offering comfort like pity wrapped in politeness. Poor thing, they whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. She must be devastated. If only they knew. Lies sound softer when you say them with a shaking smile and trembling hands. My reflection stopped looking like me. The girl in the mirror had eyes that didn't blink fast enough and lips that knew too many secrets, carried too many lies. I would touch the glass sometimes, like maybe I could reach through and pull the old me back from wherever she'd disappeared to. But she wasn't there. Only a quieter, sharper version remained. The kind that no longer waited for apologies or explanations. The kind that stopped believing in second chances and happy endings. That night, I opened my sketchbook for the first time in months. The lines came out jagged, furious, alive with an energy I didn't recognize. I wasn't designing buildings anymore. I was designing exits, plans for escape, blueprints for revenge. When the heart breaks, the mind starts building. Walls, maps, and ways out. Some nights I whispered to my reflection, "You'll be fine, Alara," but even the mirror didn't believe me yet. Still, I kept whispering, because lies told often enough start to sound like truth. The day I left the house, it didn't feel like leaving. It felt like shedding skin, like a snake becoming something new. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment downtown. Small, anonymous, perfect. The air smelled like dust and unmade plans and possibilities. No flowers, no photos, no memories hanging on walls, just concrete and silence and space to think. It's funny. The quieter life got, the louder my memories became. Every sound reminded me of them. The click of the faucet sounded like his lighter. The hum of the fridge echoed her laugh. Even the thunder outside felt like their footsteps were approaching. I realized silence has a way of replaying everything you tried to forget, amplifying what you tried to bury. So I made a rule. If pain wants to live here, it has to pay rent. And I started collecting. In words. I opened my laptop and began typing every detail I could remember. Dates, words, faces, patterns, conversations I'd dismissed as innocent, moments I'd explained away. Not for nostalgia, for evidence. I wasn't mourning anymore. I was archiving. Some people cry to heal. I document to remember. Memory is my witness. That's when I created the first file. VM/CD/timeline. I didn't know it yet, but that file was the beginning of their ending. Every betrayal, every lie, every stolen moment is carefully cataloged and timestamped, because the truth has power. She called 3 weeks later. Her voice was soft. Too soft, like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror, rehearsing the perfect tone of regret without actually feeling it. "Alara, we should talk. It's complicated. Complicated. That's the word people use when they've done something unforgivable and want it to sound poetic, romantic even. Like calling a hurricane a breeze. Like calling theft borrowing. Like calling betrayal love." I didn't shout. I didn't even breathe hard. I just listened to her explain how love happens unexpectedly, how you can't choose who your heart belongs to, how she never meant to hurt me, but sometimes life takes you places you never planned to go. And all I could think about was how she used to braid my hair when I was 12, her fingers gentle and sure, whispering, never letting anyone make you feel replaceable. "You're irreplaceable, Alara. Remember that." She broke her own rule. She gave me life and then took it back. Piece by piece in the name of love. That night I renamed my folder, VM/CD/justice. I wasn't collecting memories anymore. I was collecting ammunition. And somewhere between the rain outside and the silence inside, I felt myself shift from victim to architect. This time I wasn't building dreams. I was building consequences. And consequences, unlike love, can be engineered with precision. They can be designed, calculated, executed. And I was very good at execution. I found it while searching for my passport, planning an escape I wasn't sure I'd take. A silver locket with a photo inside, hidden in a box of his things I hadn't thrown away yet. Callan's hand resting on my mother's shoulder, both smiling like lovers from another life. The same locket he once told me he'd ordered for our wedding day. A family heirloom, he'd said with conviction. Something to pass down to our children. I sat on the floor for hours, staring at the photograph until the edges blurred and my eyes burned. Somewhere between the truth and the ache, I realized they hadn't just stolen my love. They'd stolen my future. The one where I walked down an aisle toward forever. The one where family meant safety and love meant loyalty. The one where promises weren't just pretty words people said before they destroyed you. I held that locket in my palm like it was evidence at a crime scene, because that's what it was. A crime. Not illegal, maybe, but immoral. The kind that leaves fingerprints on your soul, marks that never fade. I placed it in my evidence folder, not to hurt myself by looking at it again, but to remind myself why I couldn't stop now, why forgiveness wasn't an option, why justice was the only language they'd understand, the only response that made sense when words had failed so completely. I went to confront Callan, but when he opened the door, my mother was already there. Of course she was. They froze. So did I know words, just silence, heavy and humid like the rain outside. The air smelled like coffee and guilt and her perfume everywhere. She said, "Alara, please don't make this harder than it already is." Harder. The word hung in the air like a slap. It was like watching my world get signed away in slow motion. Like watching someone auction off pieces of your heart while you stand there unable to bid, unable to compete with your own mother. I looked at him, then at her, and I realized something that changed everything. They weren't guilty. They were defensive, like I was the one who'd done something wrong by existing, by being in love, by trusting, by believing that family was sacred and love was real and promises meant something. I turned and walked away. Not because I forgave them, but because I finally saw how small they looked together, how desperate, how fragile their borrowed happiness was. They thought they'd won, but winners don't look that afraid. Winners don't flinch when their victim walks in the room. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't slam the door, I just left. And in that silence, I planted the first seed of their undoing, because revenge doesn't announce itself. It grows quietly in the dark, roots spreading where no one can see them until it's too late. A month later, I saw their engagement post online. My mother in the same gown I'd picked for myself, ivory lace with pearl buttons down the back. The one we'd chosen together at the boutique downtown, the owner congratulating us on such perfect taste. She'd cried when I tried it on, said I looked like an angel, and took a dozen photos. Now she wore it like a trophy, like stolen glory. The caption read, "Love finds you when you least expect it." People cheered for them in the comments. Hearts, congratulations, blessings. Strangers celebrating a love built on my grave. No one knew I was the ghost they built their joy upon. That night, I deleted my social media, but I kept one screenshot. Pain, after all, deserves evidence. I printed it out and pinned it to my wall, not as decoration, as motivation. Every morning, I woke up to that image. And every morning, I reminded myself that they had celebrated on my grave, that they had danced on my heartbreak, that they had posted their joy for the world to see while I bled in silence. And every morning, I added one more page to my plan, because revenge isn't loud. It's patient, it's methodical, it's designed with care. And I'm an architect. I know how to build things that last, even when those things are justice. The house felt like an open wound. Her perfume lingered in every room like a ghost. Her laughter haunted the mirrors. My father had died years ago. And now it felt like my mother had chosen to bury me next to him. I packed what little I could carry. My degree, my sketches, and my silence. Everything else could burn for all I cared. I left the key on the kitchen table and for the first time locked the door from the outside. Locked her out of my life with a simple turn of metal. The rain was falling again as I walked to my car. I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because looking back would have broken the part of me that was finally learning to be strong. The city lights blurred through the windshield. I turned on the wipers. And as they moved back and forth, clearing the glass, I felt something clear inside me too. I wasn't running. I was relocating. To a place where their voices couldn't reach me, where their shadows couldn't find me, where I could finally breathe without tasting betrayal in the air. The highway stretched ahead like a promise, like a fresh start. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel lost. I felt aimed, pointed toward something, toward justice, toward peace, toward a version of myself they could never touch or steal or destroy. The city didn't care who I was. That was its mercy. I got a job in a design firm, quiet and steady. Nothing glamorous, just honest work with honest people. I learned to smile just enough to speak only when needed. Every night I drew, faces that resembled neither of them, buildings with strong foundations, structures that couldn't be shaken by betrayal or lies. And though I never admitted it aloud, I was building something. Not revenge, not yet, just a new self. A version of me that didn't flinch at the sound of rain or the smell of vanilla perfume. A version that didn't cry when she saw couples holding hands or heard wedding bells. A version that was learning to stand alone without feeling lonely. The city was cold. The people were strangers. But that coldness taught me something my mother never did. That warmth without honesty is just fire waiting to burn you. And I'd been burned enough. Now I am learning to be the flame, to control the heat, to decide what burns and what survives. And I was surviving, slowly, quietly, deliberately, building myself back one line at a time, one sketch at a time, one breath at a time. The firm gave me projects, small ones at first, a renovation here, an addition there. And in each design, I poured everything I couldn't say out loud. My rage, my grief, my determination, until the buildings themselves became my voice. Months later, an anonymous message landed in my inbox. "They've been talking about you. Thought you should know." Attached was a photo. Callan and my mother at a charity gala whispering over champagne glasses like conspirators. The message came from someone named M, just a single letter. No profile picture, no other information. I didn't reply, but something inside me woke up again. The part of me that remembered. Silence can be a weapon too. I stared at that photo for a long time. Their heads closed together. Their smiles are too bright, too forced. Their hands are almost touching on the table between them, and I realized they weren't happy. They were performing, trying to convince the world, trying to convince themselves that what they'd done was justified, was love, was worth it. And that's when I knew. The cracks were already forming. I didn't need to break them. I just needed to wait, to watch, to document, because the truth always comes out. Sometimes it just needs a little patience, a little time to ripen and rot. And I had nothing but time. Time to plan, time to prepare, time to build the perfect trap. One they'd walk into smiling, thinking they were safe, thinking they'd won, thinking I'd disappeared. But I hadn't disappeared. I'd just gone underground. And now I was ready to surface with everything I'd been building in the dark. I came back to town for the first time in a year. Everyone looked at me as if I were a ghost who'd overstayed her death. Their whispers didn't hurt anymore. They only confirmed I'd survived when they'd expected me to crumble into nothing. I passed their boutique, V&C Designs. My mother's business, built with my designs, was funded by her new relationship. I smiled. She'd stolen the art, but not the artist. I walked inside. The bell chimed. A saleswoman approached, but I waved her off politely. The walls were covered with sketches I'd drawn years ago, dresses I'd designed in notebooks she thought I'd forgotten about. Patterns I'd created late at night when I couldn't sleep, when inspiration struck like lightning. She'd taken everything, my ideas, my work, my dreams, and she'd put her name on them. But here's the thing about stolen art. It never quite fits the thief. The stitching was wrong. The colors are slightly off. The proportions are not quite right. The soul is missing. I took photos of everything with my phone. Every design, every price tag, every lie is hanging on display. Then I walked out, still smiling, because I'd just found the key to everything. She hadn't just stolen my love. She'd stolen my work. And theft, unlike heartbreak, is provable, documentable, punishable by law, and I had all the documentation I needed sitting in files on my computer at home. At a local event, I met Ian Vale, a quiet investor with the kind of power people whisper about in boardrooms and exclusive clubs. He saw my sketches when I dropped my portfolio by accident and papers scattered across the floor. He helped me gather them, then asked, "Why haven't you started your own line?" I said, "Because some stories deserve patience." He smiled, understanding immediately what I meant. "Then let's make them listen." That night, the idea of revenge no longer felt sinful. It felt righteous. Ian helped me register my brand under a different name, one that sounded unfamiliar to the town, completely disconnected from my past. Alara Ven, a ghost name for a ghost designer. Within months, my designs gained quiet traction online. People began calling it mysteriously intimate, hauntingly beautiful, unaware they were praising what my mother once called too emotional, too personal, too raw. I didn't seek fame, I sought the truth, and it was finding me, slowly, carefully. Like rain filling a cup, one drop at a time, until it overflows. And when it did, I wanted to make sure I was holding the cup, not drowning in it. Ian became more than an investor. He became an ally, someone who understood that justice sometimes needs capital, connections, and strategy, and he had plenty of all three. Together, we began building something that would shake the foundations of everything my mother had built on lies. A global magazine featured my work. The ghost designer behind fashion's most hauntingly beautiful line. The world wanted to know who I was, but I stayed hidden, mysterious, letting the work speak for itself. Until I read a comment from my mother's company page. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. That's when I decided. The time for patience was over. I contacted the magazine. I told them my story, not all of it, just enough. Enough to make them curious. Enough to make them investigate. Enough to make them see the patterns. They asked for proof. I gave them dates, sketches, photos, side-by-side comparisons. My designs are next to hers. The timestamps didn't lie. Mine were years older, documented, dated, undeniable. And suddenly the ghost had a face. The mystery had a name. And the world was listening, not to her, to me. For the first time in my life, my voice was louder than hers, and it felt like thunder rolling across a silent valley. The article went viral within hours. Comments flooded in. People are demanding answers, demanding accountability, demanding justice for the artist whose work had been stolen. And my mother, for the first time in her life, had no script, no practiced smile, no escape, just exposure, raw and undeniable. I watched from my apartment as her world began to unravel, and I felt nothing. Not joy, not satisfied, just the quiet certainty that the truth finally was being told. The same event where they first appeared together as a couple, I attended under my brand's name. When I entered the ballroom, she froze. Callan turned pale. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The host announced my name, Alara Venn. The crowd erupted in applause, designers, buyers, critics all standing. And for the first time, I saw her mask slip completely. Her smile faltered. Her hands gripped her glass too tight. Wine sloshed dangerously close to the rim. She looked at me like I was a ghost. And maybe I was, the ghost of the daughter she buried, the ghost of the woman she tried to erase from existence. But ghosts don't stay buried. Not when they have unfinished business. I walked past her without stopping. My dress flowed like water, custom designed by my own hand. My head is high. My heart is steady. And as I passed, I whispered just loud enough for her to hear. You wore my design well, Mother, but it never really fits you. Her face went white, all color draining in an instant. Callan reached for her arm, but she pulled away, stumbling slightly, and I kept walking, past the champagne towers, past the chandeliers, past the life they tried to steal from me. I didn't need their world anymore. I'd built my own, brick by brick, design by design, truth by truth, and mine was stronger. My mother tried to reach out. Messages, calls, even letters delivered to my apartment, all ignored. She told the press I was unstable, jealous, unable to accept her happiness and move on with my own life. But people love poetic justice. Every denial she made only exposed her guilt more clearly. She didn't know. The documents proving she'd stolen my sketches were already in Ian's possession, already being prepared for legal action. The storm was coming, and I was the one holding the clouds. She went at interviews, tried to play the victim, said I was bitter, that I couldn't move on, that I was making false accusations to ruin her business out of spite. But the internet doesn't forgive liars, especially when the truth has receipts. People dug up old posts, old photos, old timelines. They saw the patterns. The stolen designs appeared on her racks months after I'd posted them in obscure design forums. The borrowed ideas, the plagiarized dreams. And slowly her empire started to crumble, not with an explosion, but with erosion. One comment at a time, one exposure at a time, one truth at a time, and I didn't have to say a word. I just had to let the evidence speak. And it was screaming. Lawyers contacted me. Other designers she'd stolen from came forward. The foundation I'd built was unshakable because it was built on truth. And truth, unlike lies, doesn't crumble under scrutiny. Ian arranged a meeting with the press under the guise of a joint collaboration announcement. I walked in with proof. Designs dated years before her launch, notarized, time-stamped, undeniable. The screens behind me flashed with evidence. Every lie she'd published. Every theft she'd signed her name to. Every design she'd claimed as original when it was mine. She tried to interrupt, her voice rising in the back of the room. But this time, I didn't let her speak. My name is Alara Venn, I said clearly into the microphone, and this is the art you called weakness. The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Cameras flashed like lightning. Pens scribbled frantically. Questions flew from every direction, but I didn't answer them all. I just stood there, calm, collected, unshaken, because I wasn't there for revenge. I was there for the truth. And truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to show up. When I walked out of that room, I felt lighter. Not because the weight was gone, but because I'd finally set it down and let the world carry it for me. The headlines wrote themselves that night. Designer exposes mother's plagiarism empire. The ghost designer was a daughter all along. The fashion world was rocked by a family betrayal scandal, and I slept better than I had in years, dreamless and deep, the kind of sleep that comes from finally telling the truth. Their company lost investors overnight. Callan disappeared from her side within days. Her name trended, not for love but for betrayal, for theft, for lies. She came to my door one evening, eyes hollow, voice trembling like a frightened child. "Alara, please, I was lonely." I looked at her, really looked, and saw a woman undone by her own choices, aged 10 years in 10 days. "I know," I said calmly, "and I let you live with them." Then I closed the door. She knocked again, harder. I didn't answer. She called my name through the wood, her voice breaking. I turned up the music. She left a letter under the door, the envelope shaking as she slid it through. I threw it away without reading it, because forgiveness isn't something you owe to people who never asked for it properly. Forgiveness is something you give yourself when you're ready, and I'd already forgiven myself for trusting, for loving, for believing in family and loyalty and love. I didn't need to forgive her. I just needed to let her go. And I did, with the door closed and the lock turned. Outside, I heard her car start after a long time. I heard her drive away slowly. And the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of peace, full of possibility, full of a future that was finally, completely mine to design. Weeks later, my brand became a symbol of resilience. Interviews, partnerships, global recognition. Fashion weeks in Paris and Milan. But I never spoke of her again. When a reporter asked, "What inspired your rise from obscurity?" I simply answered, "Some betrayals teach you how to build an empire from ashes." That night, I visited my father's grave for the first time in years. The rain fell softly, gently. I whispered, she prayed for my silence, but God gave me a voice instead. I placed flowers on the stone, white roses, the same ones she wore at her wedding to the man I was supposed to marry. But these were for him, for the parent who loved me without conditions, without competition, without theft. For the man who taught me that integrity matters more than approval. I stayed until the rain soaked through my coat, until my fingers were numb. And when I finally stood to leave, I didn't feel sad. I felt free, because I'd honored the love that stayed, and released the love that left. And both were finally at peace. My father would have been proud, not of the revenge, but of resilience, of the woman I'd become in spite of everything trying to break me, of the empire I'd built from the ruins of betrayal. The boutique closed 3 months later. V&C Designs became a memory, a cautionary tale whispered in design schools, a lesson in what happens when you build your life on someone else's foundation. Callan moved abroad. I heard he tried to start over. New city, new name, new lies for new people. My mother stayed. She still lives in that house, the one that smells like velvet storm. But now it smells like regret too, like loss, like consequences. I see her sometimes, at the grocery store, at the park, at the post office. She looks smaller every time. Like guilt has a way of shrinking people from the inside out, collapsing them under the weight of their own choices. She never speaks to me, and I never speak to her. We just exist, in the same town, in different worlds separated by choices and consequences, and that's enough. Because some relationships don't end with closure or apologies or reconciliation. They end with distance, and distance is its own kind of goodbye. A permanent one, the kind that doesn't need words or ceremony or explanations, just space, just time, just the quiet acceptance that some bridges are meant to burn. And I'd become an expert at watching things burn without feeling the heat anymore. The flames didn't hurt. They were purified. I opened my own studio 6 months ago. Alara Venn Designs. It's small, just me and 2 assistants who believe in the work, but it's mine. Every sketch, every stitch, every dream is realized in fabric and thread. No one can take it, no one can claim it, no one can put their name on my work. It's built on my name, my work, my truth, and it's stronger than anything she ever stole. People ask me if I'm angry, if I hate her, if I want more revenge. I tell them no honestly. Because revenge was never the goal, justice was, and justice isn't about punishment, it's about balance. It's about making sure the truth gets told and heard, and the truth was told, loudly, clearly, permanently. Now I wake up every morning in a place that smells like lavender, not vanilla, and I draw, not for anyone else, not for approval or recognition, just for me, and that's enough, more than enough. The studio overlooks the water. On clear days, I can see for miles. And I think about how far I've come, how much I've survived. how strong I've become, not because of them, but in spite of them. Because of the choices I made when everything was taken from me. I chose to rebuild, to rise, to create, and that choice made all the difference. Last week I got a letter, no return address, just my name written in her handwriting, shaky now. I held it for a long time, debating, wondering if I wanted to know, then I opened it. Inside was one sentence. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you needed. I folded it back up carefully, put it in a drawer, not in the evidence folder, just in a drawer with other things that don't quite fit anywhere. Because some apologies don't change anything. They just exist. Like rain, like silence, like distance. Like memories you can't quite forget. I don't know if I'll ever respond. I don't know if she expects me to. I don't know if it even matters anymore. But for the first time, I didn't feel anger when I read those words. I felt something softer, not forgiveness exactly, but release. Like a door I didn't know was still locked finally clicked open. And the air that rushed in wasn't cold. It was just air, neutral, free, mine. Maybe one day I'll write back, maybe I won't. But either way, I'm finally free to choose. And that choice, that power, that agency is mine. Not hers, not his, mine alone. And that's the real victory, not the business success, not the recognition, but the freedom to choose who I become next, to design my own life without their shadows. The sea was calm that morning, too calm like it had nothing left to take from me. I rented a small cottage by the cliffs, far from the noise of everything I'd survived. Inside, there was only a mirror, a candle, and my reflection staring back. The woman who once cried for mercy from people who never knew how to love without taking. I didn't hate them anymore. Hate is still a kind of attachment, and I had cut every cord that tied me to their shadows. My mother lives alone now, in a house filled with mirrors she avoids, rooms she doesn't enter. Callan left the country, chasing a dream that was never his, running from consequences he couldn't escape. And me, I built something no betrayal could steal. Peace. Real peace, hard-won and precious. People call what I did revenge, but I call it resurrection. Because sometimes justice doesn't roar, it whispers. Sometimes it's quiet, persistent, and undeniable. I took the old locket, the one they shared, and threw it into the ocean. It didn't even make a sound when it sank, just a ripple, then silence. In that silence, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. My own heartbeat, steady, unafraid, strong. My name is Alara Venn. I was the daughter of betrayal. But now, I am the woman of my own becoming. And if you've ever been broken by someone you trusted, remember this. Even the wound becomes a weapon when you learn how to heal it. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with freedom, and I chose freedom every single day.